I think it's probably safe to say we were probably the only church to have a Tina Turner song in worship this morning.
I think there's a high chance of that.
Which makes me extremely proud to be the pastor of this church. That was awesome. Not to make any of you feel old, when that song came out, I was 4 years old, right? It was huge. It was the blockbuster song of 1984, and it totally revived Tina Turner's career to where she got to star in one of my favorite movies, Mad Max Beyond the Thunderdome. So,
I'm just hopeful that it revives my career as a church worship leader.
Me too, man. I don't even know what to say to that, Chris. You know, I sometimes wonder, I'm lucky. I get to work with Jeff Whitney, our communications coordinator and our keyboarder all the time, and he's a musical genius. So I get to talk about music with him all the time, and I wonder sometimes, especially about contemporary pop music, what makes a song popular and other songs unpopular? Jeff has some very distinct opinions on that, which I'll let him share. But, is it just that it's a catchy melody? Is it just that it's well marketed? Or maybe, there's something in the song that calls into us about a deeper truth, And I imagine it's usually a combination of all three. And I think What's Love Got to Do with It is somehow hits on all three of those. It's a catchy song. I imagine it was pretty well marketed. And it speaks some truth inside of us, maybe. There are these lines from the chorus portion, and I'm not going to sing them again because there's no way I can compete with that. But Miss Turner sings this. She says, "What's love got to do with it? What's love but a second-hand emotion? What's love got to do with it? Who needs a heart when a heart can be broken?" Those are huge questions. And something about those questions really speaks to me. I think it speaks to a lot of people. I think that's why this song really took root the way it would. If we're really honest with ourselves, if we're really honest with each other, relationships, they hurt. It doesn't matter what kind of relationship it is, they all hurt at one point or another. So who needs them, right? I mean, who needs to fall in love with someone, or who needs to open up to a friend or trust a family member when they're inevitably going to end up hurting us? Any relationship where we're really in a relationship, where we really open ourselves up to someone, where we become vulnerable, where we show them our weak side, where they do the same with us, well, it'll lead us to hurt. Because people let us down all the time. It isn't even just a risk that you'll get hurt. I mean, it's almost an absolute certainty. It just is. And so Tina Turner's words then, they ring true to us. They connect. Who needs a heart when a heart can be broken? Absolutely. If you give your heart to someone, it's going to be broken at some point or another. And you can live your life then by this philosophy. A lot of people do this idea of who needs a heart when a heart can be broken. And so what we do then is we keep people at arm's length, never letting them get too close to us in an attempt to protect ourselves or shield ourselves from hurt. We don't open up. We don't let people know how we're really doing. We shut ourselves off to others. And who wants to run the risk of being hurt by someone? But I think what happens then when we live out that philosophy, when we live by that philosophy of never really entering into relationships, and by relationship here, I mean reciprocity, right? I mean a real relationship where it's a give and take, allowing ourselves to really get to know somebody intimately and letting them getting to know us in the same way. But what happens when we don't enter into relationships like that, relationships of reciprocity, when we don't get into these relationships with someone, is that we begin then to objectify people. What happens is they eventually become objects to us or conquests to us. They become things that we can have or collect or benefit from. We objectify them. They stop being real people to us. And I'm not talking about just sexual objectification. I mean, usually when you talk about objectifying someone, people immediately think you're talking about sexually objectifying them. After all, that's what the song is about. I mean, the first verse goes, "You must understand, though, the touch of your hand makes my pulse react. That's only the thrill of a boy meets girl. Opposites attract. It's physical. It's logical." She says, you must try to ignore that it means more than that. This is purely lust, she's saying. This guy is just a conquest, essentially, right? But it isn't just sexually that we objectify people. Anytime we try to benefit off of someone without concern for or concern of the cost that it may cause that person, we're objectifying them. When I get what I want out of you, and don't care how that might affect you or what that might hurt you, then I'm not treating you like a human being. I'm treating you like an object. I'm objectifying you. And what's love got to do with that? Absolutely nothing. Because when we objectify people like that, essentially what happens is we become real-life vampires who just suck the life out of people until there's nothing left. We all know people like that, right? People who can just suck the life and energy right out of us. And that's because there's no reciprocity. There's no give and take. There's no real relationship. They just keep drinking from your cup until it's absolutely dry. And they never put anything back into it. And what's love got to do with that? Absolutely nothing at all. If you've ever had a friend or a relative or a lover who only calls you when they need something, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. Or people who will constantly go on and on about their day or their problems they're facing without ever asking you how you are or about yours. Or when you tell them that you've had a rough day or a week, they just immediately launch into how rough their day or week was and completely ignore or overlook the fact that you might need to talk about your own week and your own struggles. Vampires, man. Vampires. They just suck the life right out of you. And they're objectifying you. They're gaining benefit from you without ever considering or having any concern for you or the cost and the toll that might be taking on you. And it's okay to have people like that in your life, but don't fool yourself. You're not in a relationship with them. That's not what a relationship is. Not real relationships. Because real relationships are reciprocal. They're a give and take. And what's love got to do with a relationship that's not reciprocal? Absolutely nothing at all. And so as tempting as it is then to live our lives by this Tina Turner philosophy of keeping people at an arm's length and not letting anyone in, of keeping love or your heart out of the equation, it's really no way to live life at all. It's really no life to live. And as Christians, then, we're called into a different way of living and a different way of being in this world. And we're called into a different way of understanding relationships and a different way of understanding love. And it's not so much of a Tina Turner, what's love got to do with it way, and it's much more of a Pablo Neruda way of looking at love. Now, if you don't know who Pablo Neruda is, that's fine. But let me tell you, if you ever want to win someone over or make someone's heart swoon, write them a note, put a Pablo Neruda poem in it, and hand it to them. I mean, listen to this guy. I do not love you as if you were salt rose or topaz or the arrow of carnations the fire shoots off. I love you as certain dark things are to be loved, in secret, between the shadow and the soul. I love you as the plant that never blooms but carries in itself the light of hidden flowers. Thanks to your love, a solid fragrance risen from the earth lives darkly in my body. I love you without knowing how or when or from where. I love you straightforwardly, without complexities or pride. So I love you because I know no other way than this, where I does not exist, nor you. So close that your hand on my chest becomes my hand. so close that you close your eyes as I fall asleep. Holy cow. I love you because I know no other way than this, where I does not exist nor you. So close that your hand on my chest is my hand. So close that your eyes close as I fall asleep. Whew. It's getting hot in here. The only thing I think I can find that even compares to that understanding of love is something actually that Paul says here in this 1 Corinthians reading that's our reading from this morning, that's used in weddings forever and ever. But listen to what Paul is saying here about love. If I speak in the tongues of mortals or angels, but do not have love, I'm a noisy gong or a clanging cymbal. And if I have prophetic powers and understand all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have all faith so as to remove mountains, but I do not have love, then I am nothing. If I give away all of my possessions, if I hand over my body so that I may boast, but do not have love, I gain nothing. Love is patient. Love is kind. Love isn't envious or boastful or arrogant or rude. It doesn't insist on its own way. It's not irrational or irritable or resentful. It doesn't rejoice in wrongdoings. It rejoices in the truth. It bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. Love never ends. But for prophecies, they will come to an end. As for tongues, they will cease. As for knowledge, it will come to an end. For we only know in part, and we prophesy only in part. But when the complete comes, the partial will come to an end. When I was a child, I spoke like a child. I thought like a child. I reasoned like a child. When I became an adult, I put an end to childish ways. For now, we see in a mirror dimly, but then we will see face to face. Now I only know in a part, but then I will know fully, even as I have been fully known. And now hope, faith, and love abide, these three. And the greatest of these is love. What's love got to do with it? Everything. Love has everything to do with it. Because when we truly love someone and we enter into this relationship with them where they cease to be an object or different qualities or different character traits or different physical attributes or something we merely experience, but when we enter into an encounter with that person, we see them fully as a whole person, beyond faults and flaws, beyond the beautiful and the ugly in them, beyond the scars and the sacredness of who they are. There isn't any more division of who they are, but we encounter the whole person as God intended us to see each other, and they then begin to see us the same way, in the same light. They aren't something we benefit from regardless of the cost. They become someone who our lives become tangled up together. They become a part of us, like Pablo Neruda is suggesting, or we know them fully and they fully know us. We become fully known through them, as Paul tells us. They become someone whose pain you feel, whose joy you share, whose life is tangled up and bound in your own. You enter into a relationship with them where you no longer see them as a composite of different parts, but you encounter their very being, and they encounter you in the very same way. And what Paul's getting to at this passage in Corinthians, why he puts love above everything else, above even faith and hope, is because for Paul and even for Jesus, when we enter into a relationship like that, when we enter into a relationship of reciprocity, when we truly allow ourselves to love and open up to somebody and allow ourselves to be loved, we aren't just connecting with another person then, or another person's being, but what we're doing then is we're entering into an intimate relationship with not only them, but also with God. In fact, some theologians say that this kind of relationship, this relationship of love, is God. That God is the love we feel for one another. The love is this bond, this love is this connectivity that we have with other people. So to know somebody, to really enter into a real relationship with somebody, one where it's reciprocal, to encounter them as a full being and not some object, to love someone, to truly love someone, is also to know and to encounter God. What's love got to do with it? Love's got everything to do with it. Who needs a heart when a heart can be broken? Christians do. People who want to love and see God, people who want to know God in their life. That's who needs a heart that can be broken. Now the problem is, in the struggle that we run into, is that we don't always consistently stay in this relationship. This relationship of wholeness and this mode of wholeness. It seems like we're always in a constant flux between encountering a person as a whole person and objectifying them, right? And I'll give you some small examples, like when my son Isaac breaks something that meant something to me, I get angry and sometimes I yell at him. I'm seeing him for what he's done and not for who he is. When I go to cut what little hair I have left on my head, I do it in the bathroom. And for some reason, no matter how much I wipe down that counter, I can't get that freaking hair out of that thing to save my life. There's always stubble somewhere. And when my wife Beverly sees it, she grows really frustrated with me because I'm awful at it. Somehow she can get it sparkling clean, and I can't at all. In her frustration then, is that she's seeing my deficit in that moment, and she's not seeing me in my entirety. It's small examples, but examples of it nonetheless. But what Paul reminds us of in this passage then is that love, real love, true love, looks past these small parts of people and pushes us then to consider the complete person, to see the entirety of someone, to enter into a relationship with them, that a person is more than any one given part of who they are. A person is more than their struggles and successes. A person is more than the good qualities and the bad characteristics. A person is more than what they are or what they can give you. And love then lets us see that, because according to Paul, love then bears all things. Love then believes all things. Love then hopes for all things. Love then endures all things. And that love then, no matter how it might be tested and how it might struggle in any given moment, that love never ends. It might be fleeting for a moment, but it never goes away. And love then not only allows us to see sometimes someone as God then sees them, but love then allows us to see and discover God through that person. We can see and discover God through the people that we love. What's love got to do with it? Love has everything to do with it. In fact, love is absolutely the most important thing you can have in your life, and love is the best and greatest gift that another person can give you. Yes, Yes, we risk. We risk being hurt when we open ourselves up for love. It's almost a certainty. Yes, being vulnerable and open with someone about who you really are can be really, really hard and really uncomfortable. Yes, Tina Turner is right. Our hearts will probably be broken at one point or another, but the reward of that, the reward is so much greater than the risk. To know and to be fully known as a whole person, to truly encounter the fullness of who someone is, to know that the connection we share with another person isn't just a connection between us and them, but it's a connection between us, them, and God. To know that in somehow and in some way God is that connection, that God is that love we're sharing. I mean, what can be more powerful, more completing, more fulfilling than that? What's love got to do with it? Love has everything to do with it because love is where we find ourselves. Love is where we discover other people. Love is where we feel the presence of God the most. Love has everything to do with it. This morning, what we're doing, with the sacraments is we gather around symbols of love, symbols of sacrifice, symbols of a give and take relationship where Christ calls us together. Right? We have objects on the tables that cease to be objects. They become something we encounter, have a relationship, build with. And this community then becomes a relationship as well. We enter into a relationship with one another, and this morning is made even more special. It's World Communion Sunday, which means all throughout the world, Christians are gathering together around tables that look just like this and rooms that look just like this one, and around tables and rooms that look nothing at all like this. And yet we're brought together by a common thread. By the love of Jesus Christ, by his love for us, by our love for him. And so then we enter into relationship with our brothers and sisters all throughout the world tonight. And the beautiful thing about it is that there's nothing you do to deserve an invitation to a table like this one. It's not my invitation to give you. It's not this church's invitation. It's Christ's invitation. And Christ invites everyone because everyone is given a gift of grace. And just like the invitation to this table, that grace is nothing you can do to earn. It's nothing you can do to unearn it. It's not about deserve. That grace is here. It's always with us. It's always with you. And because Christ then has given us this gift of grace, this thing that calls us into a deeper love of both God and one another, and that means the invitation of this table is open to everyone. Christ invites us all to come because we're all given grace. And we all need love. So it doesn't matter this morning if you're overflowing with faith, if you're just resting in a nice cup of faith, barely have a drop of faith, or have none at all. What matters is you're invited to this table to encounter God's love and to feel the grace of Christ in us, in you, in this room, and in this world. Let us pray. God, today, all around this world, people are waking up. They're coming to worship you, to glorify you, to have some encounter with you. And they're coming around tables like this one with bread and wine like these, where we recognize in the brokenness of things, in the brokenness of bread, and the brokenness of grapes, and the brokenness of our world, and the brokenness of our own lives, your grace and your love just comes pouring out. That there's nothing we can do to contain it. It just comes pouring out. And so as we gather together this morning, as we, in our particular location, break this bread, pour this cup, help us to remember that our brothers and sisters throughout the world are with us and that we are with them. That we're united in and through your love. And that love calls into our better nature. And it's our ability to love, to be fully known, to bring others to your love, that can and will save this world. So be with us now, in this time, in this moment, with these people, in these gifts, and know that your love is enough for today. Amen. Jesus on